I call this meeting to order. Bienvenue à la 68e réunion.
Welcome to the 68th meeting of the Standing Committee on Indigenous and Northern Affairs. Our meeting today is being held in hybrid format in accordance with the Order of the House adopted on Thursday, June 23, 2022, and members will be present in person or with the Zoom application. The proceedings will be posted on the House website. For your information, the webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entire committee.
For those participating virtually, I would like to outline a few rules to follow. You may speak in the official language of your choice. Interpretation services are available for this meeting in French, English, and Inuktitut. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either Floor, English, or French. Please select your language now. If interpretation is lost, please inform me immediately and we will ensure interpretation is properly restored before resuming proceedings. For members participating in person, proceed as usually would when the whole committee is meeting in person in a committee room. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. If you are on the video conference, please click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself. Those in the room, your mic will be controlled as normal by the Proceedings and Verifications Officer. S'il vous plaît,
Please address your comments to the chair.
when speaking, please speak slowly and clearly. When you are not speaking, your mic should be on mute. With regard to a speaking list, the committee clerk and I will do the best we can to maintain consolidated order of speaking for all members, whether they are participating virtually or in person. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on November 21st, 2022, the committee is resuming its study of land restitution for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Today, our first panel, we welcome Sean Willie, President and CEO of Dened Development, Harold Kalla, Executive Chair, First Nations Financial Management Board, Sagam Alan Polchis, St. Mary's First Nation, Sidensis. Thank you so much for joining us this morning or this afternoon. So you'll each have 5 minutes for your introductory comments, and we will begin with Mr. Willie. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's my great pleasure to be here this afternoon with you to provide my words around how Canada can support innovative and sustainable solutions to provide restitution of land back to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples across Canada. First, let me recognize that today I'm speaking on the unceded traditional lands of the Algonquin people. Let me introduce myself and provide some context into why I'm here today. My name is Sean Willie. I'm both a Dennisutlané and fifth-generation Canadian, a member of the Denenukwe First Nation located in Northwest Territories. In my professional career, I'm the President and CEO of Desnethe Group, the English River First Nations Economic Development Corporation. Of most importance to me is where I come from. I was born and raised throughout Canada's north, born in the Nunavut Northwest Territories, lived in Fort McPherson, Rankin Inlet, Nunavut, and Yellowknife Northwest Territories. I grew up in a family with a Métis Dene mother and a mining executive father. I'm proud to say that I started in the gold mines in Northwest Territories as the local Indigenous hire. Why did they hire me? Well, the resource companies were forced to hire local Indigenous people as part of their permits, so I began a long and healthy career in the resource industry. English River First Nation has also had a long working history in the resource industry with the uranium mining industry in northern Saskatchewan. Like any relationship, it has its ongoing partnerships, ups and downs. But what English River saw was opportunity. The community leaders saw that the world wanted and needed the world-class uranium deposits found on their traditional lands, and they knew they could support this development and better their communities through creation of business geared to work with the uranium mining companies. Over the past 30 years, this has evolved into Desnethe Group, one of the most progressive Tier 1 First Nation owned and driven entities in Canada. Desnethe is comprised of many distinct business drivers. The heart of Desnethe is its industrial division, born out of our interactions with the northern Saskatchewan resource industry. This includes Desnethe's first company, Tron Construction and Mining, our civil earth-moving company, Nita Construction, and our underground mining builder, Mujaddick Tyson, one of the most innovative partnerships in the country. We also have strong retail and property divisions, which contain the busiest Petro-Canadas in the province of Saskatchewan, multiple other gas stations, convenience stores, grocery stores, and one of Canada's only liquor stores located on First Nation reserve lands in Saskatoon. Desnethe owns multiple investment opportunities from steel fabrication companies to trucking partnerships, marketing and communication firms. But one of the most exciting entities we own, govern, and manage is the English River's land development opportunities. One of the questions posed within this standing committee is how can we undertake a study on the restitution of land to First Nations and Inuit Métis peoples? And of special interest, how could this lead to economic development, growth opportunities across Canada? I can't dive into solving the whole issue within 5 minutes, so happy to answer any questions. But I will share with you English River and Desnethe's story of how they secured additional lands to help promote economic development. English River's leadership was and still is very pragmatic when it comes to life and business. English River leadership took advantage of the outstanding leadership among Saskatchewan First Nation groups when they all pushed for past wrongs when it comes to land entitlement. The creation of the treaty land entitlement process and the programs in Saskatchewan in the late 90s fixed these past wrongs for communities such as English River. English River was provided the opportunity through financial and acres allocated to purchase additional Crown and private lands to make up for misallocations of reserve lands when treaty was signed. English River did not sit idle. They secured thousands of acres in their traditional hunting, trapping, and fishing lands in northern Saskatchewan, and then purchased additional land south of the city of Saskatoon strictly for economic development purposes. Thus, the Grasswoods Reserve was born. They were planning ahead to help them create future revenue centers that would accentuate their northern resource revenues. This was done in the late 90s. Desnethe was tasked with developing the Grasswoods economic development lands. Saskatoon, over this 20-year period, has now grown adjacent to the Grasswoods Reserve, but the city never planned on supporting the reserve lands. So no services were provided over the last 20 years, such as infrastructure for sewage and wastewater piping. When we discussed with the city in 2018, they advised they wouldn't be building infrastructure out our way for the next 40 years. We at Desnethe took matters in their own hands. We applied for funding from the Indigenous Services Canada to build their own high-technology wastewater treatment facility and secured $2.3 million. We then approached and negotiated and signed an agreement with the Canada Infrastructure Bank to finance the development of that facility and others needed to finish the infrastructure off. Lastly, we partnered with the local rural municipality of Cormorant Park to agree to work together and allow them access to our infrastructure, thus supporting each other's growth and creating a long-term revenue driver for the First Nation. These partnerships highlight what can be done to unlock the potential of First Nation lands when we create the right value proposition. In this example, everybody wins. The rural municipality wins with the higher tax assessment rates now that their lands are serviced by a First Nation. Local developers win due to the fact that they can sell smaller lots due to the not needing to sell large land sizes for septic fields at higher values. The local landowners win as their land values have gone up in price because of a First Nation involvement. And the environment wins because we're moving away from lagoons, which are predominant in Saskatchewan, septic fields, to a state-of-the-art wastewater treatment facility. English River, through proactive and pragmatic leadership, is securing additional lands and it has set up a very strong example of how to reclaim your lands back for the betterment of your First Nation. They have created a truly leading-edge practice where they are the only First Nation who own both urban lands ready for long-term urban development and control some of the richest lands full of high-grade uranium needed to power a clean energy transition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Willey. We'll now proceed to Mr. Kella. The floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation to appear before you today. The restitution of land is a deeply important part of reconciliation. A strong connection to our land is part of the values that define who we are as Indigenous people in Canada. According to a study released 2 months ago by Environomics Institute,
Mr. Kella,
81% of Canadians see inadequate Indigenous control over their land and resources.
So sorry, I have to interrupt you. And
Merci, Madame la Présidente. À mon tour, je suis désolée d'interrompre Monsieur Kalla.
Apologies for interrupting you. The interpreter is noting that the sound quality is not good enough for interpretation.
I'm going to briefly suspend while we check with interpretation.
creation. A strong connection to our land is part of the values that define who we are as Indigenous people in Canada. According to a study released 2 months ago by Environomics Institute, 81% of Canadians
So sorry,
see-
Mr. Kella, I have to interrupt you again. We don't have interpretation.
Je m'excuse, Madame la Présidente.
Apologies, Madam Chair. Were sound tests done earlier?
Chief Polchis, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
You're on mute.
You're still on mute. There we go.
Way Nitali was Chief Adam Polches, Nujao Sadansis, St. Mary's First Nations in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Waliwin, for having me here today. St. Mary's First Nation, Sadansis, is Wolastoqey community under the Peace and Friendship Treaties. St. Mary's First Nation, Sadansis, also currently operates under the Indian Act and additions of the Lands to Reserve and Reserve Creation Act require and add lands to our land space.
So sorry, Chief Polchis, I have to interrupt you as well. We're having technical difficulties. Just hold on, if you can. I know your time is valuable. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. For bearing with me. Everyone, we will resume the meeting. Order. So Mr. Kalla and Chief Polchis, we're going to try one more time. So we're going to give Mr. Kalla the floor for 5 minutes. We'll return to you, Sagan Polchis, after that. Unfortunately, if the sound does not work this time around, we'll have to work to reschedule if possible, but we're going to give one more crack at it. Third time's the charm. So Mr. Kalla, 5 minutes. The floor is yours.
Thank you for having me here today. The restitution of land is a deeply important part of reconciliation. A strong connection to our land is part of the values that define who we are as Indigenous peoples in Canada. According to a study released 2 months ago by Environomics Institute, 81% of Canadians see inadequate Indigenous control over the lands and resources as a barrier to reconciliation. More and more Canadians are seeing the need for Indigenous communities to have more jurisdiction over their traditional territories. It should be noted that Canada sees reconciliation as part of their action plan to implement under it. However, we need to understand the transfer of land alone will not bring improvements to our communities. Canada must be prepared to invest resources in Indigenous-led responses to managing our traditional territories. We will need to build support to build capacity in our communities and increase Indigenous jurisdiction over our traditional territories. The public service needs to facilitate support and help with this transfer to Indigenous communities. I often speak to FMB staff and ask them to have an image in their minds of a young girl growing up in a northern remote First Nations reserve, and how does what we do improve her life and help her to fulfill her dreams and goals and the dreams and goals of her community. I think that's part of a vision that we have to keep in mind as we consider these matters. You can't develop healthy and sustainable Indigenous communities in keeping with UNDRIP unless we have land and jurisdiction over it. You need to be recognized as a government with the appropriate powers and fiscal capacity. In the few minutes I have here, there are a few things I want the committee to consider. First Nations increasingly look to expand their communities to respond to growing population and new economic opportunities. A regular boundary, such as the one I experienced in Ottawapiskat, a situation where one home may be on the reserve, but not in the same spaces, or the same space on either side is not. We are simply out of space in many of our communities to construct homes and meet the needs of those communities. The need for a focus on expanding Indigenous reserve to drive economic development is important, in particular in urban centers like Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Saskatchewan.
Mr. Kalla, so sorry.
Yeah.
On parle au règlement.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Call to order. I waited, but the interpreter has repeated that the sound quality is too poor to interpret. So just for those who are listening, I wanted to share that with you.
Mr. Kalla and Sagan Polchis, the clerk will be in touch to reschedule your appearances. So sorry again for the inconvenience, but our interpreters are very important to us, and we need to make sure that we have proper sound quality.
Perhaps we could arrange for them to come in.
Thank you.
Perhaps we could arrange to come in person if you prefer, but we'll follow up for sure on those details. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenica.
So at this time, committee members, we will proceed with Mr. Willie for our first round of questions. We have Mr. Vidal. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Mr. Willie, for being here. Before we get into the crux of the conversation today, Mr. Willie, I want to just begin by acknowledging the role that the First Nation that you work with through the Economic Development Arm, as you identified it as Desnethe group. You own a grocery store right up at the Forks at Beauval there, and in the midst of all the fires in whatever northern Saskatchewan, your grocery store was pretty significant in the role it would have played in a food security contribution during the fires in the last several weeks, not only for the people that live there, but for fire crews, the SaskPower people, and the people involved in the evacuation. Can you maybe just take a minute quickly and speak to how important it is to have a local business like that present in a time of an emergency situation like we saw in northern Saskatchewan and we're still seeing there over the last few weeks?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vidal, for the question. And that is located on First Nation lands that we obtained through tree land entitlement. So Again, it goes to the community's viewpoint about creating economic development through these land purchases. They created the largest grocery store at a very important juncture in northern Saskatchewan. The highway leads up to Clearwater, La Loche, Buffalo Narrows, Buffalo River First Nation, Canoe Lake. And we learned through COVID that store was very important. We had to keep it open during COVID to support the families in northern Saskatchewan. So I think they were well versed that when we called them at 12 a.m. that morning to keep the store open because there's a flood of people leaving Buffalo Narrows and Island Cross, they were very happy to help.
Thank you for that. And for committee members, if you ever get a chance to visit northern Saskatchewan, this store, it's an incredible site to go and actually see the store. So it's pretty cool. I want to pursue your discussion around the Grasswoods Urban Reserve a little bit, Mr. Willey. You talked about the contribution that English River First Nations is doing there, especially in the context of building the new wastewater treatment facility that will not only enable you to build upon the current infrastructure, but you also talked about how it benefits the neighboring rural municipality of Cormorant Park. When there was a media release that was that you were part of when this project was announced, and I want to actually read the quote and then ask you a quick question. Innovative business ventures like the one we're creating between Desnethe Group, English River First Nation, and our partners have the power to not just drive revenue in the short term, but most importantly, support long-term self-determination for the community. At Grasswoods Urban Reserve, we're leading the way with progressive environmental technologies and creating a sustainable future where economic success and environmental stewardship go hand in hand. And that's the end of your quote. In my opinion, Mr. Willey, this is just another great example of economic reconciliation. And what gets lost sometimes when we talk about these things is the good news stories of what that contributes to not only the people on the ground right in the area around this urban reserve, but the people back on the English River First Nation. Can you maybe just explain the impact of the development you've done in that Grasswoods Urban Reserve, including the water or the wastewater treatment facility and the development there, what that means to the people of English River First Nation?
Yeah, very happy to, Mr. Vidal. They secured that land 20 plus years ago through tree land entitlement. And because of the city, and at the time the RM, being quite frightened that a First Nation was buying land around Saskatoon, everyone was paralyzed and they didn't want to help the community. And it had such potential, and we've seen such great examples across the country with Sutina in Calgary, Enoch in Edmonton, Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, and Squamish out in Vancouver, that English River had a very strong asset here. But without any services, it was never going to go anywhere. So what we had to do was, when I came in, how do we unlock the value of this land potential? And the current government had a very strong policy towards supporting wastewater infrastructure on First Nation reserves, so we're happy to access funding through that stream to get this going. But what we found out, though, was that First Nations and our sovereign rights on our lands by building these type of infrastructures could add value to other stakeholders within the region. And Saskatoon is quite motivated to build on their own lands that they own on the north end of the city, and we're not interested in investing in infrastructure on the south side of Saskatoon. And so the RM of Cormorant Park was, and the landowners of southern Saskatoon were. So you saw a First Nation coming in and solving a problem for a region. So this will create own source revenue for English River. It'll create urban employment for urban members. Like many northern First Nations, we're seeing a lot of migration to the urban centers for education. So this offers a chance to develop these lands, to put gathering places for our Dene members in Saskatoon, which is primarily a Plains Cree community. But own source revenue, and I mentioned pragmatism, and I think that the government should understand that there's so much money within Indigenous economic reconciliation right now that I could travel the country and go to conferences, but what's it really doing to the grassroots? And so our leadership is always very pragmatic that you need own source revenue to control your self-determination. We've seen this in the Northwest Territories, and we've seen this in Northern Alberta, Northern BC, Northern Saskatchewan. So this will just spur further own source revenue that they can then path their own journey on self-determination, unfettered from operational financing from Indigenous services.
Thank you. I've got a couple seconds. Just really, really quickly, can you just, for the committee's sake, I want you to just talk about the kind of the geography a little bit. How far You talked about the English River First Nation. You talked about the Stort Boval. Now we're talking about the Saskatoon Grasswood Esso. Just give them a sense of the distances and geography we're talking about here.
I drive, it's only 4.5 hours, but that's but it's about 650 kilometers. The traditional boundary goes up. If you get a map of Saskatchewan out, the heart of northern Saskatchewan's Cree Lake. That's the most northern tip of English River's traditional hunting and trapping grounds, the most northern reserve. That's about 1,000 kilometers north. The communities, end of the road community, about 600 kilometers away from Saskatoon, and where they purchased the land was south of Saskatoon on your way to Regina on the busiest piece of stretch of highway.
Thank you, Mr. Riedel. We'll now move to Mr. Batiste for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Willey, for your comments. In context, I went to high school in Saskatoon. My parents were out there for 30 years teaching at University of Saskatchewan, so I've come to know the area quite a bit over my lifetime, and I've been really pleased to see how much growth has happened, economic growth, based on the urban reserves, but also based on casinos and based on that. And you said something very important there. You said the land potential. And this whole study is premised on if there was a restitution of land to Indigenous communities, that they have a potential to add to Canada's economic growth. Can you talk a little bit about what you would see as the potential for more economic growth in your region and across Canada if there was a restitution of lands to Indigenous people to help grow the economy?
I come from a context where it's Indigenous land regardless. We just have to act like it's our land, like we have for time immemorial. And I always, public policymakers have such a challenge because 90% of the population lives within 100 kilometers of the border. And that population is aging. And so there's more pressure on this table and your friends in the House to devote more money towards infrastructure and health care in the South. But what's going to drive the economy of the future is access to those critical minerals in northern Canada. And we need to start creating infrastructure driven by Indigenous communities like we've done to unlock deposits of critical minerals. Because what we're doing now is we're asking the resource companies to find super deposits because there's no infrastructure. So the economics have to be these massive super deposits, which then have an inherently higher environmental risk. So that's the vision. I think you can use the example we've set, and with the nation, what they've set, Mr. Batiste, is that our nation went out and looked at what lands can we first go for hunting, trapping, and fishing purposes. That's the first lands they went out to. And like Mr. Callis said, that's the heart of Indigenous peoples, is the lands and where they grew up. But then they took that next step and said, okay, we need own source revenue. We have these great high-grade uranium in our backyard that are going to last for 100 years, but we need to now move and buy more lands to create economic development opportunities. And so it needs to change from a rights and title discussion to strictly a business discussion. And you look in some places like our cousins in the United States, the Seminole tribe. They just bought the Mandalay Bay down in Las Vegas. They didn't do that because of it's a rights and title discussion. They did it because it was a good business play. And Indigenous communities and Indigenous business leaders like myself are moving forward to that context. But land is at the core of that, and how we can get that and create the value out of that land.
So, Mr. Willey, there's often the misconception that Indigenous communities are against development and against economic growth. What I'm hearing from you is that more and more Indigenous peoples in Canada are leading that growth in Canada, and that we shouldn't be scared of it.
Pockets, I think it has to be done correctly. You have to have proponents that are going to listen, look at three things on an environmental perspective. How are our traditional knowledge ingrained in the project design? How are we included within the ongoing operations and monitoring of operations? So in northern Saskatchewan, that's the first Indigenous-led environmental monitoring program in the country, which is emulated in the Northwest Territories and in Alberta. And then third, how were we part of the reclamation and decommissioning of these projects? If all that is maintained, then how do we participate at the highest levels in socioeconomic? And not just through tokenism, joint ventures, but real equity, real revenue sharing, So I do see a change in that happening, Mr. Batiste, and I do think the North and the West has led that discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Willie. You spoke a little bit about treaty land entitlements. For those of us who aren't from Saskatchewan, can you tell us what treaty land entitlements are and how that recognition of that has helped grow the communities?
Another great invention coming out of the First Nations of Saskatchewan. It was driven with the premise that, so in English River's example, in the summer months, they'd go up to their hunting and trapping grounds in northern Saskatchewan. When the Treaty Commissioner came by, there was only 1/4 of the community in Pachinak along the Desnethe, the Great River. And so they signed treaty based on that numbers. But in Saskatchewan, the First Nations pushed that the numbers that were allocated during treaty signing were lower than what was actually reported. And so the Office of the Treaty Commissioner pushed for a number of First Nations in Saskatchewan to get a bucket of money and a set of acreage that they could go out and resolve that past injustice. And so that's where communities like ours went out and secured their hunting, trapping, and fishing lands with Crown land, and went out and then met with private landowners to secure some of the economic development lands. I was actually listening to a story of two of the elders telling me last week they had to come out here and convince former Prime Minister Chrétien to sign off on their economic development lands because they had a quota. They could only spend so much per acre. And they said, well, that's a little bit paternalistic. And he said, yeah, let's get rid of that. And they got their land.
So what I'm hearing is, with the recognition of those treaty land entitlements and the money that was given, that as the First Nations of Saskatchewan have been able to not only grow their economies, but grow the economy of Saskatchewan as well. 100%. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Batiste. Madame Gill, vous avez la parole.
You have the floor for 6 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Willie, for being with us today. We spoke about the advantages of economic development and purchasing land in the West, and hopefully that can be seen elsewhere. I had a question. You also talked about reconciliation, economic reconciliation, and how you see things, and that there would be communication with other types, if I can say it this way. Yes, the reconciliation is economic, but also it can be something else. So what do you think of land restitution for reconciliation and for economic development and for other aspects as well?
I would fully support it. As I mentioned, I'm a believer that we need to act like we control and own the land already. There's a concept that we never gave it up. So the act of providing land back would be a great step forward in reconciliation, of course. But I think we need to challenge our First Nations to make sure that they're creating their own economic development hubs with those opportunities.
Est-ce que, d'accord, peut-être pour...
So economic reconciliation, yes, but is there anything else as well? Is there a link between land restitution and identity, for example? I'm not saying that the economy is not part of identity, but in what way do you see it? Land restitution and identity and the survival and development beyond economic development. Thank you.
Yes, of course, there's an identity tied, and you've seen this with groups like James Bay Cree, the Clecho in Northwest Territories, with Nunavut, that pride of managing and being on your own lands, 100%. So there's examples like that that go above and beyond just economic development. It's that tie to the land. It's that ability to actually call it your own. You can say it's, we all know it's Indigenous lands, but to officially say that and have control over every aspect of it is the ultimate form of reconciliation.
Et sans vouloir vous mettre...
And without putting words into your mouth, but for questions with regards to health, physical health, mental health, culture, and culture is quite large. We're talking about oral traditions and dance and written traditions and all of the different elements of culture. You talked about land purchasing south of Saskatoon, so far from the traditional territory, if I can say it that way. What do you see there? Do you see positive impacts?
Yeah, we see positive impacts, and it's a holistic viewpoint. To have a healthy culture, to have healthy health, to have happiness within your communities, you need a strong socioeconomic base. You need a diversified economy. You need the same options that people in urban centers have for education. You need the same quality of health care that you have in urban areas. And that's all very holistic. You still need a strong economy base, and that's where our people are very pragmatic about. We need to make money. It costs money to take a skidoo on the barren lands to go hunt caribou, because gas is upwards of $2 So what you see is a lot of the people who work in the resource industry seem to keep their culture. And the one thing that replaces our culture as Indigenous people is poverty. And so that's the biggest threat to us. It's engaging with resource developers or other players that can provide that economic support that you can engage fulsomely in culture, health, happiness, if you will.
Est-ce qu'il me reste un peu de temps, Madame?
Do I have any time left, Madam Chair? You have 1.5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you. So, Mr. Willie, if you could give us some examples of owning land and being able to develop the resources there and adding an economic element to it. How could that support the other important aspects of reconciliation as the ones that I mentioned, health, and you also mentioned the holistic aspect. So I know you have over 20 years of experience in that field, so if you could give us some examples, that would be great. Thank you.
There's a couple examples, and so either on self-comprehensive land claim agreements, where First Nations or Inuit and Inuit-owned lands, where the resource is located, that creates dividends, that creates payments into large trust funds that then support the social well-being of the community. In our instance, we don't technically own the land. There's still issues with obtaining reserve lands. We're not allowed to leverage those lands, but we try to create value propositions that add value to the region around us to create own source revenue. And once you have that own source revenue, then you're less dependent on the federal government. So all First Nations I know want to be less dependent on the federal government. So by creating OSR revenue, you can say, no, we don't need this federal financing. We are allowed to then invest in our own infrastructure as we see fit, which creates more employment. We are allowed to invest in our own healthcare services, holistic healthcare services, which we've seen. You have an All Nations Health Center in Fort Qu'Appelle in Saskatchewan. So it's just all about creating that economic foundation, either through your lands that you own, that there could be resource development or some other type of revenue generation, or in our case, going commercial and creating lands for commercial and industrial use.
Merci, Madame Gill.
Thank you, Ms. Gill.
For 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one question that I would like to ask you. I just want to advise everyone. We'll be handing this over to Mike Morris, my colleague. Right now in Canada, there's a free entry system that is in effect. What do you think about the free entry system where those who stake claims on land have the free will to do whatever they want with the land. Do you see that as detrimental to the environment or beneficial? How do you view it? Should the free entry system be changed or amended, and so those who state claims can have some restrictions?
Thank you for the question. We look at it so DESNETHE oversees all the land and environment for the community. I have a wonderful band member who runs a process. So we look at it different. We look at all the court cases that have been set up. Again, we're in a provincial jurisdiction who's very strong at promoting mining and mineral resources. So we then look at all the court cases that have been put in front of us, and we take a very strong approach about we're going to be the ones that get out early, define what the processes are for doing exploration on English River traditional lands. So we'll sign exploration agreements. And if companies don't, then we'll use our leverage, either through public relations or the regulatory process, to make sure those are identified and the bad players and the bad apples are called out, which you really don't want to do when you're looking for uranium, because they have a steep hill to climb on the regulatory process as it is and public perception. So English River has long been supportive of that industry. 80% of the community supports that industry. So we tried to flip it so that resource companies know that they want to get our support early and often. We've created a process that's very clear. And again, we're trying to act like a nation without having a self-comprehensive land claim agreement.
Thank you, Ms. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Idlout, as well. I'd just like to follow up on questions with respect to current federal government land, Crown land, and specifically if Mr. Willey, you'd have more to say about your advice for parliamentarians who are interested in partnerships with Indigenous communities who have made clear their interest in land back and in their leadership to move towards restitution of that land. What advice would you have for parliamentarians who want to be a part of centering their leadership in that process?
I'd support it 100%. I'd host the first meeting. Let's get going on that. The hard part is going to be the overlap agreements, because how are you going to determine who's used that land, what time period? Like, that's where the process gets sticky. I think everyone's for it. It's who's traditional, who was there last, who used it the most, right? So I think especially on Crown land, I think it's a great step to go forward. But I'd be well behind it.
So then, I guess, thank you, Mr. Chair. In terms of a follow-up, is there any experience you'd want to share with the committee, Mr. Willey, that, from your lived experience where you've seen progress made that parliamentarians here could be learning from?
I think it has to be driven by Indigenous communities, right? And that's where I think the issue always falls at the federal government is there's more hurdles and barricades put up and more challenges. If we really want to, there's a good push now to clear the docket of all comprehensive land claims and specific claims, which is well received across First Nation country. But what I've seen is that when First Nations drive these discussions and come up with our own solutions and our own partnerships, it clears the way and the federal government to come on in after. It's our own processes, procedures, holistic, using our own knowledge keepers and elders, accentuated within the federal process, not the federal process as the conduit.
Thank you, Mr. Morris and Ms. Idlow. And just before we move on to our second round, Mr. Willey, are you okay to stay for another 15 minutes of questions? I know you have a hard stop.
Sure, that's okay.
Okay, so we will do a condensed second round, and we'll begin with Mr. Schmale for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to our witness here today. It's a lovely conversation we are having, and Gary Vidal speaks very highly of you, and I was very interested to hear a lot of stories he's been telling about you. All good, though. I want you to know that, and I think it's important to know that. Since we weren't able to hear entirely from Harold Keller, I want to ask, do you know about his roadmap program? You do, yeah, the roadmap initiative. That's kind of basically what you're talking about today. Is more, grassroots up and less top down, and less endless program funding that never seems to actually, improve life on reserve. Gary was also telling me about some of the businesses that operate in your community, and he thought, what a great opportunity to talk more about that and tell anybody listening or watching what amazing opportunities are happening in your community. So if you wanted to, you can tell us about it. Gary was bragging, but I think everyone should hear this, not just he and I.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't think we're alone. I think it's... what I've seen is Northern Saskatchewan doesn't take credit for, we call it economic reconciliation, but in Northern Saskatchewan, the community's pushed for inclusion in the opening of these uranium mines in the late 70s. And when I was growing up in Northwest Territories and got the opportunity to work starting the second diamond mine, we came down to Northern Saskatchewan and brought our leaders down to those communities. And then you look at the diamond mines and what they've done in Mr. McLeod's riding, it's the same thing. Northern Alberta started doing it a little later in the process. But again, the jobs it created, the employment created. And it's, again, I take that, these are all Dene communities that are tied to these resources. And it's that very pragmatic viewpoint. And it's that generational look ahead of getting educated, getting a job, creating economic wealth in your community, which helps then your kids getting better educated. And so I've seen I'm a beneficiary of a mother who went to high school, who went to university, who was a First Nation woman, who was the first Indigenous person in the Bank of Montreal banking program. So I saw what she was doing, and I wanted to do better. And every First Nation, Métis, and Inuit person sees their parent going to work, and we all want to strive to do better. So I think it all starts with giving that opportunity. But, we've grown into, we have to take the next steps now. The table's been set, our elders set the table. They fought for us getting a piece of the pie. Now we have to continue with that dialogue. And I think that's what sets our region apart. So as I mentioned, we have many different aspects within our company that service multiple different clients across country. And we just look at, again, our community's viewpoint is create as much wealth so our community can path their own journey on self-determination and create as many jobs for Indigenous people as possible so that we transfer from a welfare system to a wage-based economy. And the multiplier effect will be their kids going to work and going into education. And what we're seeing then secondly with those companies is just opening up opportunities, because corporate Canada now, they want to do something. For years it was sort of on the corner of their desk, but what I've seen is a massive change since the unmarked graves in Kamloops, that we need to do action. And so many companies are getting involved in Indigenous reconciliation planning. We have a company that helps corporate Canada do that. So Ontario Power Generation came out with a strong reconciliation action plan. TELUS came out with a strong reconciliation action plan. Enbridge came out with a strong reconciliation action plan, all with the focus of doing more action than just rhetoric. And that's what we really need. So our companies try to match those. We want to be a tier 1 Canadian company that happens to be Indigenous, right? We don't want to lead with just politics and rhetoric to get the first contract. We want to lead with have customer service and quality so we get the second, third, and fourth. But the biggest component of that was right now is developing that land in Saskatoon to create a $1 billion revenue driver for the next 50 years.
Do you have time for one more? 10 seconds? For own source revenue you're talking about, can you give us some examples on where some of that money was being turned into the community and creating opportunity?
Well, it goes to services, so it goes to support education services, elder services. Our community put in an artificial ice rink because they're crazy about hockey. We built a bridge across the Churchill River. We've supported operations, garbage cleanup, snow clearing, so just to create more employment in the community. Not the per diem payments. We don't do per diem payments to individual band members.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Smale. We'll move to Mr. Pulowski for 5 minutes.
So, Mr. Willie, do I have this right? So English River, in their land settlement agreement, received both land and money, right? Yeah. And so it
received money to buy the land, the number of acres they could flip into reserve lands.
But the money was supposed to be used purely to buy land? Is that the way it worked?
Yes.
Okay, because that's what I'm going to get to. So, and the reason, as I understand it, was under the treaty, each person was to get so much land, so many acres, but they got ripped off, and in fact, 2/3 of their people weren't there, and so weren't counted, so they were owed more land, right? Now, something similar happened in my riding, Lac LaCroix, so they just finished their land settlement agreement, but as far as I understand it, maybe I should be asking my neighbor down here this question rather than you, but as far as I know, they were just purely given money and not money to buy land. So have things changed? Because that was back, I think he said, the 90s, and I've got some other land settlement agreements coming up in my riding, but I think it's just money rather than land. And is that changed? And should it be an option that rather than getting money, you get land instead? Or like, how did it work with English River, that you had money, but it had to go for land, to buy land?
That was a process called Treaty Land Entitlement. TLE, it's a TLE process. So it's not all 74 First Nations in Saskatchewan, but it was, I don't even know if it was half, but it was a dollar amount tied to then going out and securing this amount of acres for your community.
When they secured those acres and you bought a bunch of land, well, and I'm going to get to what you mean by buying the land, you got a bunch of land south of Saskatoon, but my understanding, if it's reserve land under the Indian Act, the people of the reserve don't actually own the land, the government holds it in trust. Now that land south of Saskatoon, is that like reserve land under the Indian Act, so it's held in trust?
Yeah, and that's a decision we make. There's many First Nations that go out and buy land and leave it as fee simple land. It's a lot more flexible as a business. You're able to leverage it, but the land we have south of Saskatoon is reserve land. But that also affords us different regulatory processes, like building a wastewater treatment facility. Nobody else could do a wastewater treatment facility in 6 months and build it, right?
Because you had the money, some assistance from Indigenous.
But it's sovereign. I'm building this wastewater treatment facility. Who's going to come and stop me? I'm going to use it for my First Nation to provide a service.
Now, also English River First Nations has also purchased land in the fee simple as well.
In fee simple, yeah, we've and other communities have it, and they've left it as fee simple land. Yeah.
So now, if you were to do it all over again, when it comes to like purchasing the land as fee simple versus having it as reserve land, which to you do you find is of more economic benefit? Which of the two arrangements?
Well, right now, I like the reserve land status. I can employ a lot of Indigenous people on reserve land status, and they really like working on reserve land status. And secondly, the regulatory regime on First Nation lands is not as rigorous as off reserve lands. So it offers me unique advantages. By telling you that, you cannot change anything.
I guess the last question, if the First Nation owns the fee simple, is that the First Nation, and do all members? Okay, so who owns it?
You set up an economic development corporation, but I'm owned by the First Nation. But it's an economic development corporation that would go out and purchase the land, or a general partner, limited partnership model that would go out and own the land.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Pulaski. Madame Gill, pour 2 minutes et demi.
2.5 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Perhaps we can see how land restitution could be a part of reconciliation, and many can be a part of that. Many stakeholders can be a part of that. How do you see the impacts for the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis, but also for the population as a whole? And I say this very humbly, Mr. Willie, or very honestly, often there's a stereotype where the economy is excluded when we're talking about First Nations with First Nations, even though that's part of their will. So if you could show us or tell us how multiple people could benefit from this. Thank you.
I think there's been numerous studies done on the GDP creation of full inclusion of Indigenous people in the economy. You look at, again, I'll use the James Bay Cree example and their self-comprehensive land claim and the amount of economic development that has spurred not only for the James Bay Cree but for the province of Quebec. And the amount of people, the offices that have been created by the James Bay Cree that, they have an office here in Ottawa. So it benefits all Canadians when Indigenous people are successful. And it's going to only increase as Canadians want access to critical minerals, which are predominantly found in northern Canada. The world wants our resources. If we have high Indigenous participation, strong ESG metrics, and fair taxation, then it's only going to help everybody within this country. Again, we're putting massive amounts of dollars in infrastructure and healthcare in southern Canada and nothing in northern Canada because there's only a few members of parliament from those regions. So I just think that land restitution, allowing First Nations to drive those processes to unlock forestry, mineral developments, power generation, power transmission, it will only benefit all Canadians. Especially when English River was in their heyday, they were asking for payments back from Indigenous Services Canada because they had lowered the welfare by 90% in the community. And so that is one of the biggest drivers that we never talk about in economic development, is moving the negative draw on welfare and social assistance over to wage-based economy. And where community members in English River are going down to Meadow Lake and then purchasing and buying trucks. So there's been studies done by the University of Saskatchewan that for every $2, for every 2 jobs that are created from Indigenous employment, it creates another job in the service industry. Because sad to say, we don't save our money. We go and buy trucks and furniture and computers, and so it's all about. There's example after example and report after report from the banks about the GDP creation of full inclusion of Indigenous people in the economy, and that starts with land back.
Merci, Madame Gill. Ms. Idlaut?
Thank you, Ms. Gill.
Mr. Morris, 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. The Yellowhead Institute's red paper on land back makes the connection between colonialism and the loss of biodiversity. So I want to just read from their red paper briefly, quote, a matter of land back is not merely a matter of justice, rights, or reconciliation. Indigenous jurisdiction can indeed help mitigate the loss of biodiversity and climate crisis. So, Mr. Willie, you've spoken a lot today about the economic impacts of land back. Can you also share your perspective at a time of global biodiversity loss of the benefit to all Canadians when it comes to the biodiversity implications of land back?
Well, I think just giving the power and control of land back, you'll see a more holistic viewpoint. And as I mentioned, the best environmental monitoring programs, the ones that are emulated throughout the country. In fact, I was lucky enough to share these with Indigenous people in Australia, with the Sami in Sweden and Norway. that we drove the environmental policies for Northern Saskatchewan, Northern Alberta, and Northern Northwest Territories. And so by having, we just want to see at the table. And so it's not all about economic development. We focus a lot on that. But you're right, it's about then having a same seat at the table at fish palpability or fish monitoring programs, flora and fauna programs up in Northwest Territories around the diamond mines. So, but it is a balance. And I think, my cousins up in Sluice-Locate, Northwest Territories are leaders in sort of the protected area, the Tyendinané National Park. And we're part of the Land Guardians program. So getting out there with the exploration companies early on. So yeah, I think it's going to help biodiversity, but it's not going to be these extremes, right? You're not going to shut down all development in all regions. You're going to have this balance between, or you're not going to have resources for everyone. You're going to have this balance in between.
Thank you so much. That ends our second round of questions. Mr. Willie, you've been a trooper for us today and really guided our discussions and such excellent testimony. So thank you so much for your time today. We will briefly suspend to move into in camera for the second portion of our meeting. Thank you very much.